Welcome to Escape Behind the Scene. I'm Akari.
And I'm Alex.
This map holds the key to today's mystery.
Okay, let me start with a question. What if I told you that one of the most influential sci-fi cartoons for a generation of American kids in the late 70s was secretly built on the chassis of a World War II kamikaze mission?
Okay, that's a strong open. You're talking about Star Blazers, aren't you?
I am. For so many, it was this epic space opera, the first anime with a continuous story, mature themes, real stakes. The Earth is dying, and the crew of the Starship Argo has 1 year to travel to a distant galaxy, get a cure, and come back.
Okay, so to understand the Ghost, we have to talk about the real ship. The historical Yamato wasn't just any battleship. This thing was a monster.
An absolute titan. She and her sister ship, the Musashi, were the heaviest and most powerfully armed battleships ever constructed. Full stop. We're talking 18.1-inch main guns that could hurl shells over 25 miles. It was designed to be able to engage and defeat any battleship the US could possibly build.
It was more than just a weapon, though. It was a national symbol. It represented Japanese engineering prowess, naval pride. It embodied the whole identity of the Imperial Japanese Navy. The name itself, Yamato, is a poetic, ancient name for Japan.
Exactly. So this ship is carrying the weight of the nation's identity on its keel. But here's the tragic irony, and this is what military historians point to again and again. It was an anachronism almost from the day it was launched.
Right, a throwback. It was built for a type of war that was already obsolete. The age of battleship on battleship duels was over. The attack on Pearl Harbor, which happened the day after Yamato's sea trials began, proved that the new queen of the seas was the aircraft carrier.
So Japan has this incredible, powerful symbol of naval might that they're almost too afraid to use. They keep it in the rear for most of the war because losing it would be such a catastrophic blow to national morale. It's this giant, powerful piece on the chessboard that barely moves.
A strategic asset that's too valuable to risk, which makes its final mission all the more shocking.
Yeah, let's talk about that. It's April 1945. The war is effectively lost for Japan. The US is invading Okinawa, and Japanese High Command decides to send the Yamato on a mission called Operation Tengo.
And the plan is, what? To sail to Okinawa and fight?
The plan was to beach the Yamato on the coast of Okinawa and use it as an unsinkable gun emplacement, a fortress. But here's the thing, they only gave it enough fuel for a one-way trip. There was never any intention of it coming back.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it was a suicide mission, a kamikaze mission for the biggest battleship in the world and its 3,000 crew members.
Precisely. It never even made it. US carrier aircraft spotted it almost immediately. It was swarmed by nearly 400 American planes. The pride of the Navy, the symbol of the empire. It was sunk in a matter of hours. Over 3,000 men went down with it.
And this is where the controversy starts, right? Even within Japan. Was this a noble, heroic last stand? A beautiful sacrifice? Or was it a senseless, reckless waste of life driven by military folly?
That's the debate that rages to this day. Some sources even suggest the whole mission was based on a misinterpretation of the emperor's remarks by naval officers. But regardless, that final act cements the Yamato's legacy. It's this dual symbol of immense pride and immense tragic failure.
Okay, so now take that incredibly complex, painful, and controversial history and try to sell it as a cartoon to American kids in 1979.
You can't. You just can't.
Which brings us to the adaptation. The original Japanese show, Space Battleship Yamato, leans into this history. The opening of the show literally depicts the rusted hulk of the Yamato on the seafloor being rebuilt into the spacefaring vessel.
Yes, and there's a key scene in the second episode of the original that was completely surgically removed for the American version, Star Blazers.
Let me guess. The final battle.
The entire sequence. The original shows a flashback to the Yamato's final World War II battle. The swarms of planes, the explosions, even the captain tied to the helm as it goes down. It explicitly connects the new spaceship to its tragic past.
And the American editors just snipped it out. Huh. So in Star Blazers, the ship, now called the Argo, is just an ancient battleship. No name, no history. Its origin is a complete blank.
A total blank. And that was just the beginning. They westernized all the names. Captain Okita becomes Captain Avatar. Kodai becomes Derek Wildstar. They toned down the violence. Scenes of crew members being sucked into space were cut. They even changed dialogue. A line like, "My brother died," becomes, "At least he got back wounded or not."
Wow, that changes the stakes entirely. So it wasn't just about removing World War II references. It was about making the entire show palatable for a young American audience, and more importantly, the broadcasters.
Of course. From a business perspective, you can see the logic. In the late 70s, the market was syndication. The FCC's rules had actually opened up space for independent shows, which is how anime got its foot in the door. But there was no way a local TV station in, say, Ohio, was going to air a cartoon that glorified a Japanese World War II battleship. It's a non-starter.
It's commercial suicide. The strategy was to remove every possible point of friction. The Yamato name itself was the biggest one. And you can see how sensitive this was, even decades later. There was a plan for a live-action Disney film in the 90s.
Oh, and the proposal was to replace the Yamato with the wreck of the USS Arizona from Pearl Harbor.
Seriously? Okay, that tells you everything you need to know. They wanted the story, but they needed to completely invert the historical symbolism to make it work for an American audience. It's a perfect illustration of the problem.
So what you end up with are two completely different shows telling two different stories, even though the animation is mostly the same. In the US, Star Blazers is a heroic sci-fi adventure. The Argo is just a cool ship. Its past doesn't matter.
But in Japan, the show is inseparable from its history. The name Yamato means everything. And the debate there is fascinatingly complex. Is the show a militaristic, nationalist fantasy? Or is it actually anti-war?
The answer seems to be both. Critics have pointed out that the show is suffocatingly Japanese in its sentimentality and reflects a nostalgia for the war era. It definitely taps into that sense of restoring national pride.
But at the same time, the original creators have woven in explicitly pacifist themes. There are lines like, "We shouldn't have fought. We should have loved each other." The story is about saving a ravaged Earth, about international cooperation. It holds both ideas in tension.
That tension is what makes the Japanese original so rich. It's wrestling with its own past. Star Blazers, by erasing that past, loses all of that nuance. It becomes a simpler, more straightforward narrative of good versus evil.
So, for the American audience, the ghost of the Yamato was exorcised. The ship's legacy wasn't just ignored, it was replaced by a purely American sci-fi sensibility. All the cultural baggage was left at the door.
And the legacy of that choice is also complicated. On one hand, Star Blazers was incredibly successful. It introduced a generation to serialized storytelling and more mature themes than they were getting anywhere else. It paved the way for the anime boom that followed.
No question. It's a landmark show. Without it, the anime landscape in the West would look very different. But the cost was this historical and cultural erasure. The very thing that gave the original its depth was deemed too controversial for export.
Which brings us to today. How do we view this story now? Well, the franchise itself has tried to address it. The 2012 reboot, Space Battleship Yamato 2199, takes a different approach.
How so?
It tries to reframe the narrative. In that version, the Yamato becomes a symbol for all of humanity, an envoy of the United Nations, not just a Japanese vessel. It's an attempt to acknowledge the past, but move it into a more global, unified context, a way of seeking redemption for the name.
Huh, that's interesting. It's like the creators are still grappling with the same questions from 50 years ago. And the debate over the real Yamato continues too. Just recently, in 2023, the names of the Yamato's crew were added to the Okinawa War Memorial.
Which, again, raises those questions. Are we honoring heroic sacrifice or whitewashing militaristic folly? There's no easy answer, and that's what's so powerful about this story. The ghost of that ship and the war it fought in still haunts this piece of pop culture.
So Star Blazers is this incredible Trojan horse. On the outside, it's a thrilling space adventure that hooked millions of kids. But inside, it's carrying this unresolved, deeply painful and complex piece of world history. Most of us just never knew it was there.